Hi guys, welcome to another series of videos recording for Sprint 32. This is really a bit of a continuation of the series that we started on Sprint 31, which was on the topic of moving to GitHub CI. So, well, I think actually we'll just start a new series, but it's not very clear what the theme of the series is going to be. It may actually just be that this is going to be a series about how we normally set up a sprint here, actually. Just to give you a flavor, how we choose stories, how we break down stories and so on. So we're still beginning the new sprint, although we've done quite a few hours already. We already are 16 hours into the sprint, largely because after almost 2 years, the release notes were extremely expensive this sprint. In the demo as well, actually. So the vast majority of work has actually just been agile overhead. We haven't actually started doing any real work. So we have one mission for this sprint at present, which is to finish our CI/CD story. The main problem there at the moment is, well, let's see. We got a couple of problems. If we go back to our, I don't think we have a C dash here. So if you go back to CI for the nightly, so the first priority we got at the moment is just to get these nightlies green. We also got some traffic lighters here causing a little bit of noise. Prior to starting this video, we've already done a bunch of work. In fact, I think I'm going to move this guy to this area, move Dia to the other area, because that seems more sensible. So we've already started doing some work trying to figure out what's happening with the nightlies. First problem was related to missing environment variables. That was actually just a series of typos and mistakes and so on. So we got that under control. In fact, I think I'm going to close this story because I think that's kind of more or less done. We have addressed, I believe, we have addressed. Yeah, we did. We addressed the problems we had with warnings. As you can see, there was a lot of warnings coming through. That's done. Still haven't made much progress on getting the Git notifications working. We still haven't made much progress on the Windows package issues. But we did make some progress on this story, which is we have a problem with full generation tests. So, as you can see in the current nightly, we're still failing about 29 tests. I'm kind of ignoring these tests here because the problem with this is related to a Clang issue. Clang was defaulting to Dwarf 4, I believe, which is not compatible with Valgrind, as you can see here from the errors. So we've got to the bottom of that one. We've got a fix in, which is covered by one or another story here. I think I might have actually batched that with this guy. Yeah, we did. We bunched the stories. I think I'll leave this one as closed. I mean, we probably should have created a separate story for this, but we didn't. So I think we'll leave this one as closed because I'm almost certain. I mean, you can reopen it if need be, but I'm almost certain tonight's nightly will resolve that problem. Which leaves us with the 29 failing tests. These tests are failing because after a very, very long investigation, we figured out that the problem is we are not honoring properly the overrides. What I mean by that is, I might even have a fix. Right, I think what we've done is we've taken away, we deleted the fix we had. So if I just show you very briefly what the problem is, we are supplying the command line arguments for variability overrides as if we were running this in the command line. In other words, minus variability override is a command line parameter. But actually far away from that here. We are in fact already gone past all the processing of command line arguments and so on. So the right incantation for the variability overrides to kick in is something like this. However, if we do that, then we will, as we've done before, we will do the variability overrides across all models, across all products, including the C++ and C# products, reference products. And actually, that's not what we want. We just want it to happen for Dogen. So when we looked into this, then we figured out that actually we need different incantations for the configuration, depending on what set of products we're testing. And that then resulted in, well, we then ended up going through sort of a rabbit hole of stories, as you can see here, including plenty of ML changes and so on. And the reason being that we wanted to, well, I'll show you, not quite that, but what we meant to see is SVG, in fact, sorry. So as you can see here, this is the Dogen model. Once we started trying to get to the bottom of this issue, we tried to use the model and then realized that the model is actually in a bit of a bad state because it's missing all the relations. It should look like something like this, which is much more understandable. So as we were trying to do the work on this, we thought, well, might as well start adding the relationships to this model as part of the work here. And then we will complete the work, the actual work on the story, post doing that. But then we then concluded that actually it was a really bad idea to start adding these things directly, because if we did, the problem is we're talking about model element names directly here. And it is fine when you have simple model names like these ones. But as soon as you have the model names across namespaces and so on, this becomes a bit tricky. And so we did a lot of analysis on it and concluded that really what we should be using is the IDs, also because IDs don't change even if you rename objects. So anyway, to cut the long story short, we don't really want to make use of verbatim as is. We need to actually fix this properly before we start using verbatim. So the final conclusion was that we needed to do the cleanup of the model prior to make the models more usable in PlantUML. And that's where we are at the moment. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to we have a story here to create a builder, which I think we're clocking on already. So what we'll do is in our builder, let's make sure we are recording. So in our builder, we, well, in fact, we don't have a builder at present, we have a mock factory. And in the mock factory, the idea with the mock factory is that you just do a single call, you supply a couple of arguments, and out comes the configuration. That's no longer the case, because for this particular setup, what we really want is the ability to supply the arguments with a bit of variation. So we need a builder rather than a mock configuration factory. So we're going to start by creating a builder with the API that's needed for our purposes. Then we're going to update the model generator to take the configuration rather than all these parameters. We'll also add all this code to the builder, so there's all this handling inside of the builder itself. And then we will then replace slowly all the code to make use of this new approach. Eventually, hopefully, we'll delete the mock configuration factory, and we will go back to a single way of doing things, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to have to pause for a second, sort something out. As usual, this is a bit busy. So let's just then get cracking. Then I think the first thing we should do really is to just try to make sure the tests are green again. They're not green at present because I think we were trying to add a type without going via the model layer. So that's cool. What we need to do is we need to go back to modeling. And where we got our model configuration factory, we need to add a mock configuration builder. It's going to be an element as well. And we could say create configurations for testing purposes. Now, I'm going to be a bit lazy here and just copy and paste, I think. We just need to replace interesting. Remember if so, if we just do something like apt-get sudo, perhaps can't quite remember. I think let's do su first, don't we? so if we just install this guy, I'm not quite sure why we're using this command instead of just using plain Lisp. But anyway, let's just yes, we're not actually using the command. So let's just have a look at the packages. We do have a slight problem with Emacs at present, which is very annoying. For some reason, don't seem to be able to install packages properly. Let's just have a quick look. If this fails, yeah, so as you can see here, we for whatever reason seem to be selecting the deleted buffer. Now that's really annoying, that is. So the solution we have for that problem for now, because we haven't had time to, oh, we don't seem to have Lisp. Oh, okay, it's under 10. Right, so the solution we have at present for this, which is a very big hack, is we need to go to our init, and then we need to, in fact, I think we've actually done that recently. So I think we'll do something like uncomment this region and then comment everything else. This is very bit of a massive hack, if I'm honest, but it's good enough for the moment. And then if we got a terminal that's not visible on that window, if we restart Emacs, but we just do a -q, oh, actually not -q, just Emacs. Yeah, it's very quick and it's actually loading just a tiny bit of our config. It's just sufficient so we can bypass that issue. Right, cool. So now that gives us what we're looking for, which is the UID package where we need it. And now if I just go here and leave things the way they were, I'll take one more. Right, so UID gen has been installed. Let's just hop over to the packages area again. What I need to do now is just go up to help and find this package, because of course it's not loaded in this session. So I just need to, in fact, if I just say, please load this chap. Right, so that should have loaded the package. Now, if I go back to models and ask again to insert, I should get a good. Now, with this, hopefully, we've got the element that we needed. And the slight downside of the current approach is, of course, that we've already created a mock configuration builder. Not huge amounts of useful things here, but I'm just gonna, for the benefit of this exercise, I'm gonna copy this guy and then get rid of this. Return to my, so we'll just do a build here. Are we recording? We are recording indeed. We'll just do a quick build and then we'll just run all tests, because we should really try okay. I think, well, we'll go run all tests. Let's just generate all models and then run all tests, because I think we're just in a bit of a state. Interesting. So dogen.org. So we seem to have a failure on our tests. The failure is for plenty.ml. Oh, actually, maybe I need to do generate all plenty.ml. Perhaps. Okay, we should regenerate all of the plenty.ml models. Interesting, it's taking so long. Okay, we seem to really have a problem. So let's go up to Git. So as you can see, the new files got generated. The model contains the changes we'd expect. Seems to be the problem is that we don't seem to be picking up the up-to-date plant.yml file. Now, if we regenerate plant.yml, that should, in theory, regenerate the Dogen model. So I think there is some kind of bug here. Perhaps missing a target. Just double check that we do have the Dogen target. There it is. I think the problem with this is that we are actually running plant.yml. So we don't really want to do that. We want something like converts. Yes, so this is the problem when you we haven't touched your own code for many moons, the years really. So let's just try to understand what target we should be using. We clearly are not running the right target. So we need is convert all. Sorry. So convert all plant.yml, something like that. Quite appropriately called cap. Right. So now then, if we then run the tests. What you really want is just make sure that everything is green before we start doing any work. What this is going to do is it's going to generate the new file that we created for the builder with probably not a lot of useful content. Once that's done, and it's done now, and the tests are passing, we can commit this. And then you can generate, so you know it's from the code generator. Right, there we are. So that's good. And then, of course, if we just have a quick look at this mock configuration builder, you will see, as I said before, nothing useful in it. We'll probably still have our implementation. Ooh. Yeah, there we go. Still have our configuration. I don't think this is going to be awfully useful, but it's better than nothing, I guess. So the mock configuration builder is going to be setting properties. So I think this is just nonsense at present. All of this is nonsense at present. So we'll just, let's just comment out this guy. Right, so that's good. We'll return to this in 5 seconds. In fact, let's just comment out everything. Because what we really want to do is, you may have spotted, we have a builder at present. We never really use this builder. For some reason. Right, there you go. So I think we should see here, if I just search for builder, as you can see, there is already a builder. I don't think this is useful for anything in particular. In fact, it looks very much, it's not the case. So let's just get rid of this particular builder. And going through the exact same motion as we first generate all org modes, then it converts all plant.yml, and then we run all tests, and then hopefully sorry, one thing you need to do in CMake every so often is just run a configure, especially when you start deleting and removing files and so on, because of course the CMake files are not going to be pointing to the right thing. Okay, cool. So this doesn't look too bad. So I think all we need is to look at the mock configuration builder and comment out, if I just get rid of this guy. If I look at the mock configuration builder and comment out whatever it is that we got here. Right, a shortcut for this. Right, so that will work. Let's double check our recording is really recording. 20 minutes into it. So perhaps the objective of this video, since we try to not take much longer than an hour, let's just focus on trying to get this builder in. So to recap, what we're trying to do is we need a mock configuration builder to replace the mock factory. We need it to be flexible enough so that we can configure it with and without environment variable support, such that for the Dogen product, we will request it to read the environment. For everything else, we don't want to do that. You could say it's a bit of a hack, really, but if I could explain this. So if I take the product test here, the problem at the moment is we only have one option, which is to always read the environment. And if you do read the environment, the problem then is that for other products, this is a Dogen product, as you can see there, it is not a good thing that we're doing a full generation. We just want to do it for Dogen. So the builder that we're creating is going to give us the flexibility to determine when we want this on. So let's then, now we can start cooking with gas. Can ignore that guy. Can take that guy, take that guy, and take that guy, and say Dogen remove configuration builder. So remove unused configuration builder. We probably had this for other reasons, but since we now have a mock one, we can just get rid of it. It's just nothing is breaking. We call that. That looks good. Okay, so let's just quickly implement this builder. What we want from the builder is something really simple. In fact, I think we already got all the properties here. So we just want to set these guys plus perhaps a couple more. And we know exactly what it is because we have a model generator that is already doing a lot of the hard work. So we want the targets as well as everything else. And we want to, well, we're going to follow so a build-like pattern. So we need something that returns the builder by ref, perhaps. The variable name will be very much the thing we want to set. So for example, something like target. Then we supply a parameter, something like that. I mean, we're not using the proper C++ 20 or 17 way of doing things. And perhaps we could say model generator. If we get, we're going to need here, we don't need a share pointer. We're going to need something like boost file system path. Something like that. And we also need something non-const private target. And for now, we probably could just have a header only thing, but don't ask me why, but we're just going to go for a non-inlined version of this. It doesn't really matter, it's just test code anyway. So, right, so what we'll do is in our builder, we'll do something like this. And also, we probably want a bit of logging here as well, actually. So you may find weird why you need all this sort of stuff for something that's just for testing. But what we found in the past is that you end up needing these things when there's something breaks, and then you have to go back and add all this missing functionality. So sometimes we find it easier to just start off by putting all the things we need to start off with, so that we don't have to worry about it later. So as an example, we need something like this. Guy comes in, we clearly want target to be equal to target, as you can mention. We clearly want to return this. And then we could probably say something like setting up targets. Anything special, but this way we know that the configuration is kicking in. and we return the builder. So I think this is the formula for pretty much everything we're going to do here. Now, I don't think we need that guy. We probably could get away with this guy because I think we're going to just say build, and build will be constant presumably, and this means we need a configuration. So I suspect this is going to be something like Dogen types configuration. Sounded sensible. In fact, sounded extremely sensible. Not sure why. Probably a typo somewhere. Not too sure why this is failing. That sounds rather sensible. Sometimes this could be, let's just do a restart of the workspace. Right, so what we think is happening here, we probably have a problem whereby we are not updating the config file. So if you are aware of how LSP works, LSP relies on somebody to provide you with all of the compilation settings for a given file. And as you can see here, we're pointing to these compile commands. I bet you that we haven't got this new file here in the compile commands. Now, the reason for that may be that, well, first let's just double check that. So we should be in build output Linux Clang. We are running Linux Clang, yeah, correct. Compile commands is here. September the 19th, that sounds about right. So let's just quickly grep for mock configuration. Build up. That looks good. So clearly it's there. That being the case, then the only other thing I can think of is let's just do a restart of the workspace. Yes, as you can see here, it doesn't think it's associated with LSP. So let's start again. Right, that's good. So it didn't even require a restart. So although to be fair, the symbols always look a bit weird, but right, so that solved our immediate problem. I think we probably should do something similar for the CTP. And now then, so I must make sure that we don't declare things by reference. Right, cool. So we're in a good place now to start doing real work. So I guess this is just rinse and repeat, really. We just need to set up all these guys one at a time. And for each of these, we supply, of course they can't be consts, we just have to supply the variables. So enable tracing, I need 3 or 4 of these. So you can see nothing particularly special here. I don't really have my snippets, so of course I'm doing this by hand. I'm sure if you're a Emacs user, you're moaning already about it. So probably what you want to do here is something like read environment, something like that. I mean, this is obviously not perfect, but yeah, like I said, I'm not actually using my snippets and things like that, so it's everything being done by hand, which is not how real Emacs users do things, but this is good enough for now. Right, so what we'll just do is get these guys to match up. And there you go. So very simple. And then of course take one of these guys. Again, you can see them not doing anything particularly special here. Oh, actually, one thing we could do here, we could ensure these guys are initialized correctly. Right, so now then, we can follow the same approach, really. As you can see, this is a lot of copying and pasting, really. We must make sure these guys are all using builder by ref. Yeah, as you can imagine, it will be a 5-second job here to do this as a template. Make sure we're not const. That looks fine. Returning by ref. That looks fine too. We probably need this to be colorful. Right, cool. So that looks good. So now, as you can imagine, we repeat that a few times. So that's for tracing. This goes for reporting. Diffing. And read environments. So clearly not the best variable name. Read environments. Right, as you can see, this is very, very simple. Then you try to actually build a configuration. And to do so, what we try to do then is to say, show me that model generator again. What we do then is, right, as you can see here, we have this notion of global and local. So, interestingly enough, so the idea being that you could just set, apologies, need to sneeze. Even though never ending cold. The idea being in the past that we sometimes just want to debug every single test, and we just enable globally the tracing, reporting, diffing, all that sort of stuff. And that's then inside of the model generator. Some of the times you just want it for specific tests. Now, because we are trying to do this from the builder, it's not clear how exactly that links in. Let's have a quick look at the mock configuration factory. So in the configuration factory, we supply these parameters, and then the factory, yeah, as you can see here, the factory then goes away and does his little thing. So I'm wondering, yeah, I think we can follow exactly the same pattern. So if I go to the model generator and say, please take these guys here and call these the globals, and then these other guys will be the locals, and then we can determine at construction time whether which of these guys is on, and for good measure I will rename these guys accordingly, just so we know which one is which. And to be fair, I think we probably will follow the pattern for the environment as well. I mean, highly unlikely we're ever going to need this for everything, but that doesn't matter. So the idea then here will be we check global this local, we obtain the values, we decide which one's which, and then remove elements locally. Right, cool. This looks about right. So let's just update these guys here. I think this is it. We just need to set up the local ones. Just to give you, I mean, probably going to be crazy here, but just to give you the flexibility, sometimes of setting up everything, sometimes of just setting up things locally. Not sure why we failed to find the logo. If I'm honest. Maybe we do need to do a restart of the workspace. Okay, yet again, something seems to be happening with LSP. Not quite sure what. Tmax is probably do a restart, if I'm honest. Anyway, let's just see if we can finish the video and then I'll restart Tmax. It hasn't been up for that long, if I'm honest. But I have been, only 3 days, I have been messing around with Emacs a little bit, so perhaps that's why. So if we go back to that factory of ours, and in the factory, if I just grab the core of this method, I don't think we need all of that. And then in here, what we're going to do is we are going to take into account well, we need some kind of prefix for this, so let's copy these guys. What's going to happen in a second is that we're going to get rid of the factory, so this copying and pasting is not a big problem. So this guy is now going to say we did have targets, but yeah, so we have a target here. And if target is not set, we should probably throw, presumably. So if target.empty, not sure what happened there. Then we throw here, no. Right, so if target is empty, we'll just throw a hissifit and just exit. Where is the activity? The activity is something we supply. And I think we do really need to supply an activity. The interesting thing, of course, is that we're probably going to have exactly the same setup for all the tests, except for the one environment variable. So let's have a look at what the factory does here. Where is the activity? Yeah, here we go. So the activity is just the run activity, which is the same for pretty much everybody. Wonder if anyone else is using this factory. There's the run activity. Should we make this a variable or not? Question really is, who else is using this factory besides the model generator? Let's just have a quick check. factory, if I could spell. So if I just do a quick references of the factory, again, for some really weird reason, we don't seem to be in LSP mode in all of our buffers. This is really annoying. No idea why. Right, so the factory. It is being used by conversion. Oh, right, there you go. As you can see here, we're using it for conversion tests, as well as by product generation tests and so on, right? So these guys presumably will have their own activities, which is also the same as this guy, org to org. Okay, to be honest, I wonder why this is the same activity. They should probably have a different name, but as you can see here, we have tracing going on. We have the same activity, so I haven't found any examples of activities different from run activity. Okay, yeah, so here is code generation. So there are different activities. So I'm just going to be slightly lazy here and say, again, you see a few strangely max errors there. I'm just going to be slightly lazy and just basically say that there is such a thing as the activity. And it's just a std string, and we worry about whether this is the right model or not later. Because it's so easy. It's just quite easy to do it this way. Which also means we should be able to create one of these guys here very quickly as well. So activity string activity. Right, so as you can see, our activity is now set up the same way as everything else. And we could say the run identifier prefix activity. If file name is not empty, well, we seem to accept file names that are empty, so just hold on a little bit without throwing. We need some kind of support for boost file system operations. And right, so enable diffing, this will be our ED. Enable tracing, this will be our ET. Nothing special here. And enable reporting, probably ER presumably. Right, so at this point in time, we could just return, in fact, we should just call this guy R. Here we are. And away you go. So this is already creating a basic configuration that does trivial things. And we should probably just add, for good measure, configuration IO. There's the mock factory. Let's just go up to the factory again. Presumably this guy will add the configuration IO somewhere. And if we just do exactly the same thing, and dump the config just prior to returning, just so we know what this guy's doing. And for good measure, we know we didn't do this before, but we try to improve the code as we go along. So something very simple like diffing enable. It's just a couple of clues so that when we look at the log file, we know what's going on. Right, and now that we've done the basics for the config of I actually think we're probably going to need these variability overrides, but we will do it slightly differently, really. Before anything else, let's just jump over to the model generator. And in the model generator, we will have all the handling of overrides, which is happening here. So we will just do something very simple. This guy is going to return this must be a vector of override somewhere. It's just a string, interesting enough. Right, so if I just do something like private maybe, so if I just read the validity overrides. Now, this is where things become a little bit less nice, because a second ago we tried to call this variable something to do with the environment, read environment. I think these names are not really adding up really, but and the other thing, of course, is we don't have the global one, but it doesn't matter. So what we're going to do, this is really not ideal. We can always tidy things up a bit later, but first pass is we need to try to get this in a good state for tonight so that we can test our nightly. So it's not important that this is perfect, but it's nice if it's at least complete. If we can use exactly the same logic here, and similarly we could create a variable such as this one, slightly more globally. And if we just say this is set to true, well, actually we should probably set all these guys to false. And so now it's set to true. And then we could do something such as read environment, I guess. So if we read environment either globally or locally, so if we don't read environment low, so we can just return a string. Okay. However, if we do need to read it, then we can do something like this. So full generator is not enabled. So if it is enabled, now let's just grab a few things. We're going to need utility. The differ and the variable reader. And that could be placed around here somewhere. Okay. Now then, and we need some boost stuff. So perhaps this guy. Okay, so if we need to read the variable, we can read it. And then if it's on, we let's just fix that typo that we described in the beginning. Perhaps we could just do it in one go. And now, very significantly, we just need to return the full generation option here. Similarly, in fact, to be honest, let's think about this. So probably read environments. Labels. Okay. So if we're not reading from the environment, don't bother, just return. If we are reading from the environment, obtain the full generation. If it's set to on, do as follows. If it's not set to on, we can just basically say, not quite that, but something along the lines of full generation not enabled. As you can see here. And that should be it for reading from the environment. And if we do that, then presumably we just need to say whatever we did for the variability overrides prior to this. That was interesting. Yes, here we are. So we just supplied here. So now if we go back to the factory, we probably have something like this. And we just need to say variability overrides, probably constant, I guess. In fact, to be honest, you probably would. Let's think about this. You probably don't even need to call this function if the read environment is off, right? So perhaps we don't even need to bother with all this logic here. And we could supply it here instead. So we could say take local or global if it's neither. Just give me some output, else read the overrides. If the override is empty, if the override is not empty, presumably, set up. Otherwise, okay, and now we just need to understand why it is that that function is not const, which it should be. Right, so I shouldn't really touch anything. So now we have a builder, I believe, that does everything it should do. Handles all of the tracing stuff, all of the diffing, etc., etc. Start putting the configuration a little bit too early, but it's easily fixed. Okay, so this chap here now is able to build the mock configuration, and it should give us all the variation that we need. Now we need to set the target. We need to also set the activity. The only thing is we probably need some kind of variable that says do not read from the environment. Okay, so this is probably good enough to get us going. So let's just try building. It's obviously not going to be perfect, but that's not the point. The point just is that we can create the builder, and the builder is going to go away and do most of the work required for building. Then we will change the generator to take maybe just one variable. No, actually, no, that would make a lot of sense. We probably need to build. Let's think about this for a second. Let's have a look at the tests. So we need clearly to target the product directory, project directory, the reference directories. We are not supplying any of these things, interestingly enough. Not quite sure why not. Again, LSP seems to be very unhappy. Not sure why. So why is it that we are not? Yeah, as you can see here, we create the configuration, but we don't supply the reference directories or the output directory to the configuration itself. It's using the bootstrap, so that's fine. So we can still supply those guys, supply the configuration separately. However, we don't really want to be creating the configuration hundreds of times. So let's go back again. So the target will go in the config. We could have a project level config generator that takes the config. It knows about the reader environment. I think, yeah, as you can see again, seems like something is not quite right with my LSP today. How are we doing for time? Almost an hour already. Right, okay, let's just try to wrap things up then. So we pretty much created a mock configuration builder. We just need to replace the code that's actually calling the top level transform chain to take a config instead of taking the targets. And then our top level tests will supply the read environment variable set to false, well, true for this particular case, false for everything else. And then we just need to go through each and every of these guys here to replace that with a builder. And then eventually we delete the factory once we get rid of everything else. So this is just going to be a bit boring, and it's going to be a lot faster if I do this offline. Besides, I need to reset my Emacs. But at least this video should give you the gist of what we're trying to do. So let's just recap quite quickly what's going on here. The problem that we had was we have this really awkward and weird situation where we need to sometimes override our configuration such that we do full generation. But this doesn't happen all the time. If we do it all the time, then we're going to break all the tests that are passing at present, which are quite a lot. So we need to only force overrides for variability for the Dogen product tests. Everything else should stay as it is. However, in order to do that, I mean, we could have continued our hackery with the factory, but it was getting really messy. So instead, we created a builder, which is a bit more flexible than the factory. We will set up the builder as required for the different products, and only the Dogen product will have a read environment set to true. Hopefully this is defaulting to the right thing. Every other product will have a read environment set to false, which then means that only one product is going to have full generation, which will then match what we're doing for the nightlies. So hopefully if we do that, then we should get all these tests to go green. For tonight, the only thing we need to do, especially given it's already a bit late, we just need to update the Dogen product to use this setup. If it works, that would allow us to get the build to go green. Then we can update all the other products with a bit more time. And that should then allow us to get rid of the factory. Okay, hopefully this makes sense for our first video of this series. We will continue once we've done all the sort of the grunt work. See you in the next episode.